And welcome into another Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. I'm Scott Agness. Thanks to everyone for joining me here this evening after the Bucks with a dominant second half, outscoring the Pacers 70-44 to force a game five, which we now know will be at 6 p.m. on Tuesday here in Indianapolis, as 5 games are certainly necessary after the Bucks game to win 117-101, the final in that one. And going into it, it started out in a game where both teams just struggled early on, getting shots to fall. And uh, despite some changes and an early zone and some early flashes, it was the Pacers that played better in the first quarter. And despite not playing great, it was all even at 26. Then they built their separation there in that second quarter, 31-21, gaining a 10-point advantage going into the halftime era. And Neesmith was tremendous, especially there in that first half, what he did at both ends of the floor. Defensively, spent significant time on Giannis, spent time blocking shots, getting in passing lanes, just having active hands and making all the hustle plays that the team needs, especially in these playoff games. But they took a 10-point lead into halftime, had to feel good about themselves, but certainly not content or happy or feel like things were going their way, because Tyrese Halliburton was getting more overrated chance and shots falling down. Miles Turner wasn't seeing shots fall down. TJ McConnell ultimately did not score off the bench. It was really just the grown-up, Pascal Siakam, who's played the most playoff games here, that didn't look uncomfortable. He looked just natural in this spot, whereas it felt like the Pacers kind of panicked and did not play well there, certainly in the third quarter and then into the fourth. But by the time the fourth quarter got around, it was just about over. Now, the one big change in the game was to the starting lineup, and that was early on, obviously, with Gary Trent Jr. going in for Taurean Prince. And I like that one because Prince had been rendered effective and ineffective in this series. He had not been good, had not made his mark on it. And so why not throw him out there? I thought the only other one they may had considered was Bobby Portis, coming off like a 28-point night here in Indianapolis in game two. Maybe him over Brook Lopez. And in this one, I mean, Brook Lopez, 0 points, 0 for 3 in 15 minutes. So that wouldn't have been bad either, considering Portis had 10 points, 8 boards, and he got the bulk of the minutes. He played twice as many minutes as Brook Lopez, but probably they wanted, speaking of Doc Rivers, probably wanted some more consistency with that lineup and that fluidity within that group, and then play whoever had the hot hand. But the one change that did make sense, and they did, was putting Gary Trent Jr. there. Thanks to everyone for joining me here and that are continuing to funnel in here on my live post-game show on YouTube. Feel free to use the comments section to either share your thoughts or ask any questions as we continue on here throughout the night. Probably go for about a half an hour or so. I know it's a Friday night. I know a lot of Pacer fans are certainly disappointed here. And so probably don't want to hear much of the conversation, but you got to talk about the bad ones as much as you talk about the good ones. And let's go to that third quarter where everything went to hell for this Pacers team. First of all, what a dominant run from, you knew Antetokounmpo was going to be solid, but Gary Trent Jr., those two were tremendous. What did they do? They teamed up for 54 of the Bucks' first 75 points. At one point, Trent Jr. had 7 threes. The rest of the Bucks had 9 threes. It was clearly the best game of Gary Trent's career as a season-high point total. It was a career high in the postseason. He had a 40-point game, but look, that's in the regular season. Certainly didn't have these stakes. You can easily say, without seeing it, this had to be the most productive and impactful game for Gary Trent Jr., who's in his first year with this Milwaukee Bucks team. He spent the last 4 years up north across the border with the Toronto Raptors. And it was not just his shooting, which clearly was the number one thing. I mean, the guy was 9 of 12 from distance, grabbed 3 rebounds, was a plus 20, even though I don't rely too much on that, but I wanted to note that. 6 of 7 at the free throw line. His scoring was number one. But secondly, his defense and all of that was solid too. He'd gotten to passing lanes. He was talking some trash out there, as he's known to do. And the Pacers just weren't themselves. They got flustered, just got away from playing their basketball. And that included on the offensive end. I mean, in that first half, we saw them go 18 of 23 in terms of assists, 2 field goals. How about let's look in the second half? I have not looked this up. I'm doing this live. They did score effectively with the assist, 14 on 16. They just didn't score nearly enough. That was their trouble. I know Rick Carlisle was not happy with the ball movement and how the ball kind of got stuck and the pace slowed down in that second half. And as he'll tell you, that the defense directly impacts that as much as anything as well, too. By the way, when the other team's scoring and you're grabbing it out of the net rather than from a rebound, that really changes the way in which the Pacers are able to flow and get into their scoring at the other end, where they're trying to score there in the first 8 seconds or less, and in an ideal situation. Now, a couple times they were able to and get to the rim and lay it right in, but this Bucks team came out, kept firing, scored early on. What was it? A 15-5, 12-3 run specifically there to begin the second half. And I think that was kind of a monkey off the back for the Bucks. That got the home crowd into it, woke them up at Fiserv Forum in what was a sellout crowd of 17,942, many in green. They gave out rally towels as well. I don't know why we're still doing rally towels. That's a whole different conversation. But that brought the Bucks crowd to life. And so things got really difficult at that point. We saw Ben Shepherd get some of his first minutes. He hadn't played in exactly 3 weeks because of that left great big toe injury. And so that was an interesting move, I thought, for them to throw him out there rather than like a Jarris Walker. I knew a lot of Pacer fans were frustrated by that. 1 second. There we go. But here's the thing with Ben Shepherd. The challenge was you got into foul issues, right? With Neesmith, especially with Nembhard there, picking up 3 personal fouls. And so you needed to send another defender out there. And in doing so, that allowed for Shepherd to get his first playoff minutes. It also allowed for you to throw a different body at some of those wings. So that was the point in all of that. Although it is so difficult to not only play a guy doesn't have any playoff experience in this series, but also hasn't played in 3 weeks. I thought that was a curious idea. But that was not why they lost by any means. I think it was probably good for the long run that Ben Shepherd got some minutes out there. And then the other thing was you just did not get nearly as much from your benchers as you were used to. Just 4 Pacer players finished in double figures in this one. 10 from Toppin. He was your best scorer off the bench. Second was Mathurin with 9. And let's talk about Mathurin. A very rough third quarter from him. It looked like that bulldog mentality that we praise him for so often got the best of him and caused him to lose his composure there in that third quarter. Because when he did that, what are you doing walking up to Giannis right before he's about to shoot a free throw? I mean, some would call that gamesmanship and you get a warning. In turn, he got a technical there with 4:40 left in the third quarter. And he was trying to, the commentators got this wrong as I was flipping on ESPN. They kept saying, do the Pacers challenge that because Mathurin took a knee to his lower stomach? No, what he was wanting is to look, was it an offensive foul and maybe a flagrant foul on Giannis? It was not. He's just going up to compete. But I thought that disruption was not good for the Pacers there in that middle third quarter where things were out of sync. They were not in rhythm. It was a big run. We saw Rick Carlisle in that third quarter have to use multiple timeouts. They got flustered. We saw different lineups. At one point, later in the game, I think it was middle of the fourth quarter, he had Siakam make a foul just because he needed to get some of the starters back in the game, like Halliburton and Miles Turner was the other one I remember there. So it was just not a good second half for that Pacers team. And so many guys are at fault. The only ones I can't really criticize is Siakam, and I thought Aaron Neesmith again was really solid. And Nembhard is as well. Got some questions and comments on here, so I'll jump on those. I'm here on live on YouTube. And if you missed it on my Pacers Fieldhouse Files podcast, Bob says the offense flows much better when Halliburton distributes the ball and leads to his attack. What are your thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. That's why he finished with his third straight double-double. The challenge, though, is, as many people pointed out on Twitter throughout the game, is too often he defaulted to pass. He defaulted to settling for threes, or when he did attack, look for the clear out. And they caught on a couple times, and that led to a throwaway or two as they could anticipate the pass. So that became a difficult thing there. You would like to see him. Remember last year we talked about this, and then he did it was attack and continue on to the basket. Either get to the free throw line, which he didn't tonight, 0 attempts, or it's that floater. It's the same thing Caitlin Clark's working on her game going into the season, which starts Sunday, is you got to have that floater to get it off. So when the three's not there and the layups aren't there, is you can throw it up from, I don't know, 8 feet out. We didn't see any of that. So I agreed with a lot of that sentiment. But no doubt, I mean, this team is built around Tyrese. It's built around his skill set, about running, playing fast, and playing his style of offense. And so that's why you do see the high assist number, 32 of 39 of field goals. But there's a way in which I think they can further maximize it. MK Sinks, welcome back. I think you're 3 for 3 in attending this live post-game show, so I appreciate it. Says ugly game, sucks. The Pacers couldn't take advantage of another bad game by Dame. It felt like the tech on Ben was a huge turning point, not just smart, but didn't think the tech was warranted either. I did just talk a little bit about the technical, given the circumstances, being a playoff game and such, and Mathern's a young guy. I think that's where you try to let that one pass by. You pull him over during a timeout. Hey, that's your only warning. That is not acceptable on my court. Is it really worth a technical? I mean, it was wrong. It was unnecessary. It's a little bit gamesmanship, trying to slow things down, get Giannis out of his rhythm, disrupt his free throw routine. But I would agree, only because I like the officials to stay out of the game as much as possible when it comes to the playoffs, right? You want the players to decide things down on the court. Now, that's not at all what impacted the Pacers there. But, yeah, valid points, certainly. What is that? Comijo? Pacers didn't show up for the second half. Very lackadaisical in both third and fourth quarter. Absolutely. That's why they got burnt 70-44 after they have a 40-point first quarter the other night. And in this one, they barely scored 40 points in the second half. It was just very unlike this Pacers team. We do know they're going to have lulls. They're going to give up runs like they did to start the second half, which was 12-3. It was just ridiculous. They couldn't slow Trent Jr. whatsoever. That's something I look forward to, going back and watching the clips of that second half, and with Trent Jr. in particular, and see what else could they throw at him. Who was the primary defender on him at that time? Because I would have started forced things out of them. At one point, he and Antetokounmpo combined for 54 of their 75 points. That's the classic case that makes somebody else beat you. It's also a case where in a playoff game, stars win, but when you can get bonus performances from role players like Gary Trent Jr. is, a player who has only started 9 regular season games and 74 appearances this season, that's a huge win, because you got to believe Giannis is going to have a 45-point night, don't you? What he did tonight is his average. Now, it was spectacular, especially by everybody else's standards. But with Giannis with 37, 12, and 6, he didn't have a triple-double. He didn't get 18 rebounds like he did last game. He still hadn't had a 40-point game, and yet they easily won in the second half, and did so with 16 points, and with the Pacers pulling their starters with 4+ minutes left. So if you're the Bucks, you got to feel good in considering Giannis hadn't popped off for that big game. As one of you referenced, Dame was awful. He did show signs of rust, certainly in this game. Maybe it was adrenaline that carried him in that first half of game 2. Because in the second half, I think he was 1 for 7. In this first half, he was 1 for 8. And in this one, he ultimately finished 1 for 4. So he's went 1 for 7, 1 for 8, and 1 for 4 in each of the last 3 quarters. He has not been the player you expect, but I'm not criticizing him, to be clear. Like, this guy is coming back from an injury I didn't even think he'd come back from. I didn't know if he'd even have a full offseason of work. He'd probably have to lay low and be on blood thinner. So it is impressive / surprising that he is even out there. But again, if you're the Pacers and you're looking at this, you see Giannis got his averages, and Dame gave him 7 points. Really, it was, I think, 2 points when the game wasn't in hand. He finished with 2 of 12, made 2 foul shots, and totaled 7 points, I should say. He did not have a good game, and they still easily ended up with the victory. What's the way forward for the Pacers in Game 4? They can't let the Bucks role players like Trent Jr. have their way. Yeah, absolutely, not at all. First of all, you can't allow, um, like you said, Trent Jr. to go off like that. Whether it's sending two to the ball, trapping, making somebody else randomly beat you, like Kuzma, he had 9 points. Maybe you force his hand and make him beat you. Or I'm hesitant. You don't want to try that on Lillard because to me, given his experience, being a 9-time All-Star, hitting big shots. Last thing I want to do is tempt fate and allow for him to get into rhythm. Not at all. No. I can't allow for that whatsoever. That's why I'll allow for an ancillary piece and such to do so there. Uh, that would be the thing you're okay with. You're not good with Damian Lillard to go off by any means like that. Bobby Portis was solid, 10 points, 8 rebounds. AJ Green, we saw him knock down 4 threes. That's where he scored his 12 points. But outside of that, they didn't really get anything else from their bench. And Taurean Prince, who had started the first couple of games, played 3 minutes. Just 0 for 1. So the way forward, first of all, is the Pacers have to be better offensively. Again, the pace slowed down. They got disruptive. Then I think they started playing more of their ISO ball rather than their team ball out there and moving it around. Miles is not going to shoot, what was he, 0 for 6 from 3 and 1 for 9 from the field. Miles should have 2 or 3 made field goals at least around the basket every single game. He's just too often around there. How about a rebound putback? He only had 3 rebounds, 2 on the defensive end. So I think a lot of it, too, is just guys looking within themselves and going, I got to play better. I'm looking at Turner. I'm looking at Halliburton. Halliburton can't have 2 air ball threes in a playoff game. And what that tells me is you're not in rhythm and you're forcing it up there. And these weren't close to shot clock violations. These weren't, a half court shot before the end of the half, anything like that. And then you need more from the bench as well. Toppin was solid, even though he could have been better. Everybody on this roster could have been better. I thought the standout performer in the first half was Aaron Nesmith. In the second half, it was Pascal Siakam. Those two I don't worry about. Nembhard, you don't really do either. He finished 2 of 8. You would have liked to see him be better on the offensive end, but they are asking so much defensively. And when he is basically at least a scratch at minimum with Damian Lillard, who played basically the same exact minutes, their minutes mirrored each other, you're good with that. Then it's on everybody else to start in their roles. So I'm forcing the ball out of someone like Trent's hands, whoever has that hot hand. I'm not allowing Giannis to go off for a 45 or 50-point game or anything like that. And then, again, you need more from their bench. And as much as I do talk about the offensive challenges, all these issues stem defensively from allowing the Bucks to get in rhythm. Sure, they were missing shots in that first half, and that's going to level things up, right? And they shot, I think, 60% in that third quarter where they outscored the Pacers 39-18. But there's ways in which you can disrupt them. This was also the first game where the free throw differential was obvious. I think the Pacers had lost the combined free throw totals by just 1 over the first 2 games. Well, not this one. This one, they were -9. Now, they were 10 of 13, but the Bucks were 8 of 22. There's 8 points right there. The Pacers didn't get to the line. They didn't force their issue. Siakam, or rather, no, it was actually Turner, and that surprises me in thinking about it. It was Miles who finished with 6 points. 4 of those came at the free throw line as who didn't have the ball a ton in his hands, who only played 24 minutes, he led the Pacers in free throw shooting. I need to see more from Nembhard there, Siakam, and especially from Benedict Mather, just 1 attempt. And Tyrese, this has been a thing I'd like to see a lot more of. But Tyrese, for how much he's out there, how much he's attacking the basket, he's got to get to the line at least 3 or 4 times per game. 0, that's unacceptable, I think, to me. Appreciate the kind words, Indy Archive. Appreciate that. Make sure everyone is subscribed and following along here. All kinds of Pacers content for the last decade plus. A ton more Fever content coming, starting up on Sunday with the start of training camp. So looking forward to that. And what a day Sunday will be. It'll go right from day 1 of Fever training camp, I'm writing my story, to then game 4 of Pacers Bucks. Game 5, by the way, if you're just joining us or catching up late, game 5, we now know it is Tuesday. It is in Indy at 6 p.m. Early start because of the Boston Celtics and Orlando Magic also forcing a game 5. That game is at 7, I believe. And so Pacers are at 6 It's on NBA TV and FanDuel Sports Network. So yes, it is another one of those games in Indianapolis where if you're a user like on watching on YouTube TV, you're going to be blacked out. So you're going to have to go to a bar. You're going to have to figure out a different situation. And one of those things could be subscribing to FanDuel or even subscribing for the one game pass, which is like $7 to watch that game, but plan ahead because you'll want to watch Game 5. Eddie, appreciate you joining me as you said you would. Tyrese pressed up too many shots at the rim. Absolutely. I know you were a little bit busy earlier on, but no question. He's got to get to the free throw line. He's got to get that floater off, and he can't default to passing. We know that's what he loves. We know that's what he's best at, but it was predictive at this point. They were easily not just having to read his eyes. They would know, hey, he's going to attack the basket, make the initial stop. Then he's going to do that jump pass. And every single time he did. And they jumped in front of it a couple times. He airballed a couple threes. You need more from your all-star guard. And I know it's a difficult situation for him going back home and hearing boos on the first possession, going back home to his hometown team in Wisconsin, having friends and family there and hearing chants of overrated on a national televised broadcast. That's not good. Yet at the same time, I know he loves the WWE factor and, he can lean into that, but he's got to produce. And that's as simple as it is. And to your point, Eddie, yeah, you're right. He's got to knock down the floater. He's got to score a layup or two at the basket. I need to look back at the stats there. I'm not sure he even attempted one. It felt like every one of his, it was a rim attack, kick out, or settling from a three-pointer. And of his 11 shots, 9 of them were from 23 feet out, were three-pointers. That's it. And he 4 of his makes were three-pointers. So he made 1 shot inside the arc and 0 free throw attempts. He's a guard. He's a smaller player. He's got to produce more inside the arc. So I totally agree with that thought there. Bucks get the win tonight, 117-101. It's a 2-1 Pacers lead in the best of 7 series. As a franchise, the team is 7-0 in best of 7 series with a 2-0 lead. So they're trying to hold up that end of the bargain. I think they will. I don't think they'll have a problem with that. It's just they got to realize this isn't going to be simple. We're not going to see Giannis and the Bucks roll over here by any means. They have some pride on the line, and you also got to realize they're playing for this iteration of the Bucks. Because it's seemingly likely, that if and when the Pacers knock off the Bucks here in round 1, that there could be sweeping changes with the Bucks. Remember, they got a new coach with Doc Rivers just a year and a half ago. I wonder if he's gone. I wonder if Giannis will want out. They'll certainly have to make roster changes. So that's it. In addition to the individual pride and team pride, is this group may not be together again. Can they really afford to bring back Giannis and Dame? A group that has not been healthy since their championship run in 2021. It's really unfortunate from the Eastern Conference standpoint because we thought this team might be the team for at least a couple of years, and that certainly really never panned out. MK Sinks, we're just in round 1, game 3. Feels like the first time the Pacers were gassed. Need to steal one on Sunday. I'm not sure it was gassed. I don't think that was necessarily it. It almost felt more mental to me. It looked like mentally that they were not all there, that they were, again, I go back to the composure standpoint, that they were doing too many things outside themselves. Maybe Tyrese got caught up, in those chants, that Matherin got caught up talking with Thanasis on Antetokounmpo courtside, and then the technical with Giannis and too much talking and guys missing shots, and then that piles up. I think it was kind of self-inflicted wounds that got to them mentally, much more than physically. They did shoot 32% from 3, not great, but not 20%. They got one more shot than the Bucks. They weren't horrible on the glass, -8, but still. I don't think it was as much physical, gassed, ready for a break by any means. This team had at least a week off. The stars, and talking about Halliburton and talking about Siakam, those guys had almost 2 full weeks off since they've last played. So I can't blame any of that. There are a lot of unfortunates in this world, Scott. Yeah, that's true. Not sure exactly what you're getting at there, but it was the dunk at the end of the first half. That's right. Yeah, good point. That's right. this is just a bad performance overall by the Pacers. Certainly one you can look at the film and get a lot from, and that's what they'll do over the weekend here. Is you got Saturday to review the film, clean things up, and then a long day Sunday. Because remember, the fourth straight game. And now that I think about it, with Tuesday's game being at 6:00, how's this for inconsistency? All 5 games have started at 5 different times. Remember, game 1 was like 1:00. And then I think we've had a 7, an 8, a 9:30, and now we'll have a 6:00. I feel bad for you fans. I'm good with the late night one, but that's also going to certainly impact probably the crowd that tunes into this one here to enjoy this post game show. But I thought that was something certainly notable here as yet a different a different time for each one of those games. All right, any last questions, comments here before I wrap up this post game show? If you missed any part of it, you can rewatch the stream here once I wrap it up, or re-listen to it on the Fieldhouse Files post game show and in my Fieldhouse Files podcast. And by the way, I encourage you to go to fieldhousefiles.com and to the podcast to check out my most latest story and podcast. The Pacer guy, or sign guy, flamingo guy, Matt Asen joined me to talk about what game 2 was like for him. What a creative and fun sign he made. Kind of that countdown for Giannis to go to the line using kind of that elevator lever, if you will. And he did it 2-sided so the people behind saw as well. What I had a full all-encompassing conversation with Matt Asen, who lives in Florida. It was about 30 minutes. So I highly encourage you to check that out and enjoy that conversation, because I know I certainly didn't. It's a story I've been wanting to tell for several years. I thought I might get to it during the downtime in the pandemic, like when I wrote about the Pacers fan that appeared in the Last Chance documentary. Well, that's 5 years old now when you think about it, which is wild. But so many different stories I love to get to. And then by Sunday, I'll be back at Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the start of another Indiana Fever season. Spent time meeting with several people of the organization this week, gearing up for the season. It's stunning that 41 of 44 of their games are on national TV. That's more than any NBA team, more than the Lakers, the Warriors, anyone. They're certainly the it team in the WNBA. The turnaround will be painful to travel back after Sunday's game. Yeah, and get ready for Tuesday for sure, but both teams have to do it. MK, they have charter flights. They shouldn't be too worried. Now, yeah, they'll be good. They got first class accommodations. I'm not too worried about that. And how about the fact that the Pacers are healthy? Outside of Isaiah Jackson, everyone on this Pacers roster healthy and available. Now it's just a matter of them putting it together and getting the job done. And they certainly did not do that when they were outscored there in that third quarter, 39-18. That's wildly unacceptable. They tried to break the burst there several different times as Carlisle and his staff burned timeouts, but it just wasn't enough in this one. And the Bucks came away with the victory and kind of giving them some life, because you go down 3-0 to the Pacers on your home court. You know the odds are terribly low to win the series. And now you're really just playing for pride, right? You're playing for the gentleman's sweep. Probably going to be 5 games back in Indiana. You really don't want to come back, but you also don't want to get swept. Now, you know the door's ajar for the series. You have the best player in the series in Antetokounmpo. He's produced every single game and still hasn't been spectacular by his standards. And they're right there, 2-1 in the best of 7 series. I'll have a lot more content coming to you at fieldhousefiles.com. I'm going to wrap up this live post-game show. I do one of these after every single Pacers playoff game. Thanks to you for joining me. Subscribe to the channel and the podcast if you haven't done so already. And I will talk to you again very soon. Have a great night, everyone.